Former Amazon employees are claiming victory after the Labor Relations Board ruled against the company for criticizing or firing those workers for criticizing the company's policies on climate change, as well as the treatment of warehouse workers. Let's bring in Yahoo Finance's Max Zahn, who's covering this story for us. Max, this comes at a time when there's a lot of attention on the treatment and working conditions of Amazon employees. How significant is this particular ruling? How big of a setback is it for Amazon?
This is a significant ruling, and the implications are important. Let me talk about the workers at issue here, Emily Cunningham and Marin Costa. These were two designers at the company's headquarters in Seattle, and they were two of the most visible members of a group called Amazon Employees for Climate Justice. Now, last spring, as the coronavirus was taking hold in the United States, they pivoted their focus to look at the safety fears at Amazon warehouses. The company fired them in April, saying they'd violated its policy on external communications, forbidding workers to speak out without corporate approval or without business justification. They said they'd been fired illegally as retaliation for speaking out, and now we have the labor board siding with them, saying that they were, in fact, fired illegally. The company also was sanctioned for conduct toward a worker named Jonathan Bailey. He's a warehouse worker in Queens who was organizing a protest, again, last spring as the coronavirus was taking hold around those safety fears at his warehouse. He says the company interrogated him after the protest. They accused him of harassing coworkers, trying to get them to join the protest. And the labor board has said they acted illegally in their conduct toward Bailey. What's interesting here is that looking ahead, the company faces many more of these charges. 37 of these charges were filed against Amazon since February 2020. That's more than triple the number that were filed against the company in 2019. By comparison, Walmart, another giant employer, had only 8 of those charges filed against it in that same period since February 2020. So as you said, as there's this heightened scrutiny of Amazon with this union election vote pending in Bessemer, now we see a nationwide look at some of its practices during the coronavirus, some of its response to worker organizing, and a labor board that it looks like is not looking kindly on some of those practices.
And Max, also not looking kindly, the Biden administration, you'll recall we heard from the president early on when the voting started over in Alabama for organizing that warehouse. But it sounds like there's another administration official that's also speaking out against Amazon's practices.
Absolutely. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, in a conversation with Yahoo Finance in response to a question about Amazon, brought up this issue of worker intimidation.
In the Amazon situation, we're going to see in the next few days what the result of the vote is. But I definitely think that there should be no intimidation when somebody wants to join a union. If the workers feel they want a union, they should have that opportunity to be able to vote on and putting a union in their workplace.
Now, what's interesting here is that at least right now, this organizing is largely a public relations concern for Amazon. We do have one vote pending at that warehouse in Bessemer. Even if they win that vote, there's a long road to getting a contract that guarantees, basic pay or more workplace protections. But what we have now, and even if they get that, is just one of more than 100 warehouses in North America for the company. But if we have a Biden administration that's willing to speak out very directly on this issue of intimidation, and we have now a series of potentially many more rulings from the board around these practices, then you start to wonder if there are concerns that get at some of the public relations image of Amazon before we get more worker organizing that leads potentially to unions at these warehouses.
And we should mention you can catch that full interview with Labor Secretary Marty Walsh on our website, yahoofinance.com. Max Zahn, thanks so much for bringing us that story.